the president of the Government Accountability Institute, former fellow at the Hoover Institute, and chief editor at large for Breitbart News. Peter Schweizer, welcome to Uncover California.
Hey, Lori, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so honored to have you here. You know, there's a lot of people talking about Kamala Harris like she's the new Messiah. And being a Californian, you know, we now know that her old district, San Francisco, Oakland, you need a poop map. And you hear a lot about her sexual exploitations. To me, that is nonsense. I really don't care about it. But what I do care about is what got her to where she is today. You've done a lot of research on Kamala Harris and the dark money and what she did to get her to where she is today. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure, Lori. I mean, Kamala Harris really arrived on the political scene in 2003 when she ran for San Francisco district attorney. She was running against the incumbent, a guy named Terrence Hallinan. And Terrence Hallinan was a progressive and he was a Democrat. But he really kind of wanted to hold powerful people into account. He didn't matter to him who those people were. He had launched a couple of investigations and was in the middle of prosecuting several of Willie Brown's friends. Willie Brown, of course, who had been the head of the California Assembly, was now the mayor of San Francisco. Terrence Hallinan was investigating his friends. Hallinan was also investigating the problem of priest sex abuse that was rocking the country at the time. He had gotten documents from the San Francisco diocese. He had gotten documents from a very powerful prep school there called St. Ignatius. And he was getting ready to A, prosecute people, and B, take those internal documents, scrub the names of victims, and publicize them. So needless to say, Terrence Hallinan was ruffling a lot of feathers in very powerful positions. So what basically happened is Kamala Harris ran against Terrence Hallinan, and she had the full backing of the mayor, Willie Brown, with whom she had previously had a romantic relationship, and also some very powerful people in San Francisco who were connected to that Catholic school who wanted the scandal to go away. They poured gobs of money into her campaign. Willie Brown got the local unions energized, and she literally came out of nowhere. She was not known in San Francisco, and she beat Terrence Hallinan. What happened? She got into power. She dropped the charges against all of Willie Brown's friends. Some of these charges involved public safety. One of his friends was selling subpar concrete for the construction of things like parking garages and bridges that could end in disaster. The other thing that she did was she deep-sixed any investigation or exposure of the priestly abuse case in the Bay Area. So the bottom line is that the genesis of her political career, it was all about cover-up. It was all about insiders putting her into power. And for all the talking that she does about, you know, being concerned about justice and protecting innocent victims, that certainly was not the case when she ran for office and she achieved that position. But the same sort of problems occurred when she became the California Attorney General as well.
You know what? And it's so scary because the thing is they're promoting her as somebody that she's not. Her policy, everything that she's doing, and being a Californian and somebody who had run for office in the past, I saw firsthand that I was being supported by grassroots supporters, the people, where piles of money from corporations and lobbyists are what supports these campaigns. In your opinion, Peter, how dangerous is it for this country if Kamala Harris were to become president?
Well, if you look in the space of her position as prosecutor, you see that she covers up for political allies and she goes after her political enemies. I mean, look at when she became California Attorney General in 2010. One of the things that was happening around the country is there were investigations taking place of health nutrition supplement companies for making faulty, exaggerated claims about what their products would do. The Department of Justice was looking at it, the Federal Trade Commission in Washington, D.C., and her office in San Diego said, we need to investigate these companies. They're located in California. We've done it as it regards other industries, we need to go after these 6 companies and investigate. Kamala Harris shut it down, totally out of character for her. Why did she do it? Well, it turns out that, lo and behold, her husband's law firm, Venable, represented all 6 of those companies. So literally those investigations of those companies went away. And I would argue it's because Kamala Harris's husband was the managing partner of the Venable office in Los Angeles at the time. Look at some of the other things that she did. There was a nonprofit hospital chain in California that was run by the Sisters of Mercy. They wanted to sell it to another nonprofit because they couldn't afford to run it anymore. The problem is that that nonprofit that wanted to buy it did not want the Service Employees International Union to organize because they said they couldn't afford it. They couldn't run the hospitals with it. This is a nonprofit who worked with the California Nurses Association, had endorsements from the National Organization of Women, because they had said, if we buy this chain of hospitals, we will maintain consistent services. We will not eliminate any. The fact that they would not allow the SEIU to unionize led Kamala Harris, who had the authority, to block that sale. And what ended up happening is this hospital chain that was going to go to a nonprofit was bought by a hedge fund in New York. Kamala Harris did approve of that transaction because the hedge fund owners were Democrat donors. And of course, they allowed SEIU to unionize. The problem is that the hospital chain shut down and restricted a lot of services. So my point is that she goes after her opponents. She supports her powerful friends. That's certainly what she did as a law enforcement official, as a prosecutor. And I can expect as a president, she would continue to wield power in the same way.
And we've seen a lot of that. We've seen this with President Trump, with all the lawfare laid out against him. We've seen it against American citizens. And I do know that Kamala, at one point, there were some investigative journalists that had uncovered that Planned Parenthood was selling baby body parts. And I think she was instrumental in having them thrown in jail. So again, if we want a constitutional republic, I don't see how this fits. And the censorship from the censorship industrial complex seems to be wrapping up again. And everything that she's saying that she stands for now, we have proven material. It's not where she did stand. Now, I want to shift a little bit because we do have you for limited time. I want to talk a little bit about the national security threat of the Biden administration and their connections to the CCP. You know, I don't want this story to go away. I don't think that Joe should be able to walk from the money laundering that they have done with foreign nations. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line is the Bidens have received tens of millions of dollars from foreign entities tied to corrupt foreign governments, some of whom are adversarial towards the United States. They've received, when Joe Biden was vice president, some $31 million from 4 Chinese businessmen. And the problem here is there's no discernible service or product that the Bidens offered in return. I mean, no legitimate product or service. This was a quote unquote international finance firm that Hunter Biden was running. And the Chinese businessmen in question were sending him millions of dollars, and he was giving them nothing in return in terms of for business purposes. The bottom line is that these businessmen are not sending money for no reason. They were expecting something in return. And it's what the Chinese call elite capture. They want to, it doesn't matter your political party, they want to get elites in power in the United States that are sympathetic or on the hook to them so they can get favorable treatment. And that is certainly what they have received with Joe Biden. And what you were talking about earlier with the censorship by the media is absolutely true. I mean, I first reported on this. I was the first one in 2018. The mainstream media ignored it. We just had a couple of weeks ago now, the Department of Justice of the Biden administration has filed documents in the tax case against Hunter Biden, where they say that Hunter Biden was engaged in influence peddling operations involving the United States government. They're only, 6 years late. and the mainstream
Yeah.
media is still not really reporting on it. So this is the inherent problem, and this is, I think, going to be the playbook as it involves Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We've done a lot of research on Tim Walz as well and his troubling ties to China. It's a major problem that we do not have a functioning press in any consistent way that investigates people. My view has always been investigate Trump, expose stuff you want with Trump. Some of the stuff they've reported has been good. Some of it's been terrible, but report it, but do it on both sides. And they don't do that. They only do it on one side.
Yeah, we don't seem to have equal justice under the law anymore. I'm really concerned about this country. That X space that was on last night, I went ahead and joined in. I thought it was a fabulous conversation. Yet we had threatening letters coming from the EU. And I just can't help to think that the World Economic Forum, they just don't want America anymore. They want to have a one world government. They want to have a one world economy. And I think that we're in a really dangerous place in this country right now. What do you suggest that the people do to fight back against everything that's going on?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to arm yourself with information and facts. Be discerning, right? Just because you see something on Twitter X doesn't mean it's true. Fact check it. Try to find it. Right. I don't mean use the fact check organizations. I mean, actually look at the document and the material and see if you can verify it. And once you do that, share it with people. Be bold about it. Not obnoxious, but be bold and share it with people. Because look, the information's not going to trickle out any other way. People who are, politically not involved are not going to watch Fox News. They're not going to read the Wall Street Journal. So they're going to rely on friends, or they're going to rely on social media. And the social media algorithms, with the exception of Twitter X, is biased in a certain way. So we are in a situation today which seems unimaginable. There is so much information out there. There's so much information that's accessible. There's almost too much. It becomes overwhelming for people to sift through it. So they rely on certain gatekeepers. And the problem is those gatekeepers are these major media outlets and these big social media companies, and they all have an agenda. The truth will win out. I ultimately believe that. But the problem is it may win out when it's too late.
Right. And the thing that happened to me in 2020, along with millions of other Americans, was I had posted the Hunter Biden laptop story that Miranda Devine had written. And that moment, and I'm not even kidding you, within the same hour, I was banned off Instagram. I was banned off Facebook. They took my business pages. And so then I walked away from my business and I ran for office, and now I'm doing this. It's crazy. I never in 100 years would think this would be something that I'm doing, but getting the truth out is so important. As my pastor says, a lie can't stand in the light of truth. One thing I'm also seeing, Peter, that's very concerning is when you go to Google or when you go to DuckDuckGo or any of these search engines, I can put in an article and nothing but left-wing articles come out. Right. The algorithms are just swaying so far to the left. We can't get true information anymore. What have you seen?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I did a documentary called The Creepy Line that came out in 2018. You can get it on Amazon Prime for free if you want to watch it. We interviewed Jordan Peterson and Robert Epstein, who's done a lot of research in this area. And it's precisely about this. It's about Google and these big tech companies and how they are literally swaying elections. They've done it in third world countries. They're doing it in the United States. Because the thing we have to realize is that people that are watching this podcast are probably people that are pretty well informed. They're taking the time to listen to this. The vast majority of people, or at least a sizable chunk of people out there, really aren't. And you'd be surprised. Right. Google gets millions of search results a week before the election that says, who should I vote for president? Because people are trying to get a sense of what's going on. That gives Google enormous power. And as we showed in the documentary in that 2016 election, based on a Harvard researcher's analysis, the search results overwhelmingly favored Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump in 2016, and that trend continues. Now, Trump won in 2016, but the bar is getting higher and higher and higher for people to jump over if they don't have the backing or the blessing of these big tech companies. Excuse me.
Oh, I had one of those coughs too. It never went away for like months. It drove me absolutely crazy. So, God bless you. Anyways,
Thank you.
yeah. So you brought up Hillary Clinton, and I think that that's one thing that a lot of American people are really frustrated with, is we're not seeing equal justice under the law again. We know that she deleted her server, that she smashed her cell phones with, hammers, bleach pit, everything. We see what's going on with the Bidens, and yet we're seeing this lawfare come against conservatives. I'm actually going to be premiering a movie in about a week and a half. I'm trying to get a bunch of people that have made these films like yours and get them in front of audiences. So the January 6th defendants, I've got a friend that did nothing wrong, and he's actually fighting. The government's trying to get him to do a plea deal so they could get that guilty verdict out of him, and he's fighting it, and he's been fighting it for 4 years. We are just seeing American citizens thrown in jail. The guy that did the meme about Hillary thrown in jail. Nothing ever happens to these people. Tell everybody what you uncovered about Hillary real quick. I know we're getting limited on time here.
Yeah, Hillary and Bill ran a massive influence operation to collect hundreds of millions of dollars, which they did from foreign governments and entities. It was through speaking fees, and it was through the Clinton Foundation. And all you need to know about the Clinton Foundation is they took large sums of money from places like Russia, Ukraine, and China, and they collected that money when Hillary was Secretary of State. In other words, our chief diplomat, and when she was running for president in 2016. And guess what? When she lost the presidency in 2016, all that money dried up. The Clinton Foundation donations dropped more than 80%. And the donations from overseas, which were the bulk of them, dropped even more dramatically, which is clear evidence as to why they were giving that money. The Clintons, I think, were the first ones who globalized corruption. We're used to, unfortunately, corruption involving, local contractors in somebody's congressional district. They globalized it. They said, we're going to go overseas and we're going to get these foreign corrupt political actors to pay us money. And I think that's one of the things that inspired the Bidens in their business model. And it's a dangerous trend, because it's one thing when you're dealing with one American trying to corrupt another because they're trying to get a contract or a favor. It's another thing when you have foreign authorities, foreign oligarchs, paying our elected officials or their family members money because they want to change our national security policy, and they want to do something that is beneficial for them. And that's what the Clintons perfected. What I would say to everybody is you cannot get discouraged in light of what you just said. The worst thing that can happen is for everybody to just throw up their hands and say, forget it. I'm done. It's not fair. I'm not doing this anymore, because that's exactly what these corrupt people want you to do. When people like you and me or people in this audience get out of it and quit and fold up and go away, that gives them the victory. So keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the Clinton Foundation. I think I talked to you a little bit about it earlier. And again, I want you to write a book on Arabella Advisors, because when they shut down the Clinton World Initiative, about a week later, Arabella Advisors popped up with Hans-Georg Weiss, who owns the Tribune now. And we've got foreign billionaire money that has more money than the RNC and DNC combined. And all of a sudden, this Act Blue scandal's popping up where people might donate $100, but there's $10,000 in donations coming from individuals saying, I never gave $10,000. Arabella Advisors has the four funds, the Hopewell Fund, the 1630 Fund underneath them. And then they have pop-up groups, and they're all run out of the same office in Washington, D.C. And with these pop-up groups, that's how they're paying the protesters. You've got Defend Democracy. You want to know where all these tents come from? That's where. So I want to see you do a book on that one, because I'm telling you, I think you could slay it. But and Eric Kessler, who used to be the president of the Clinton World Initiative, is now the president of Arabella Advisors. It's all connected. One more thing I'd like to ask you about. We've got a congressional slush fund for people that get, charged, are accused of sexual misconduct. Do you believe half of our elected officials are we being run on blackmail?
I think that certainly is absolutely an element. I mean, there was a case just 5 or 6 months ago that was reported and that has now disappeared, that there was a brothel being run out of Northern Virginia. And the report from the Department of Justice was the people that were going to this brothel were high-ranking political and military officials in Washington, D.C. That story emerged. The Department of Justice mentioned it. It has completely disappeared. So I think this is a major problem on both sides of the aisle. And transparency is so key. I mean, look, I understand we don't need to know every single thing about everyone, but certainly when it comes to accusations or the truth behind sexual harassment or this kind of behavior, we absolutely need full transparency. What Washington, D.C. will tell you is the reason that the American people are losing confidence in their political leaders is because of all the anti-government rhetoric by people like Trump. It's not. It's because they see what their government officials are doing or not doing, and they are disgusted by it. It's the actions in Washington, D.C. that are leading people to lack trust in Washington, not the criticism of Washington. And until we are more transparent and start to clean house, it's just going to continue to be a problem.
Okay, so one more thing I need to talk to you about. I know now, too, the Biden administration has put us back into the global compact of migration. And they have been using our taxpayer dollars, using our refugee resettlement program to funnel these, to actually enable this invasion on our country. They've also lost track of 85,000 migrant children. Are they laundering money with our border?
Oh, I have no doubt they're laundering money with our border. I mean, you look at the entire mechanism for migrants coming to the United States, it's largely through criminal smuggling networks run by the Mexican drug cartels or run by other organized crime syndicates from China. So the notion that you're going to have this global compact involving the migration of people, moving people illegally, and it's not going to entail a criminal element is laughable. So, again, the issue here is transparency. And let's be honest, if you look at the statements of officials on the political left going back 20 years, they will say repeatedly that migration is the way to change the demographics of the country to favor them politically. They're open about it. They claim it. So, why pretend that this is not a political act being taken on by the political left in this country?
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize as these migrants come in, they're counted in the census, which redistributes people in our congressional districts so they can skew that. And then I know some judge in Arizona just said that illegal aliens can vote. So we're in big trouble, Peter. And I appreciate so much the work that you do. I hope you keep it up. Do a book on Arabella Advisors. I want to see that because I think once you open that can of worms, it's pretty crazy. And not enough people talk about it. But let people know where they can find you and...
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, you can find our podcast at thedrilldown.com, or you can go to peterschweizer.com, which is my website. And of course, I'm on Twitter X at Peter Schweizer. And I really enjoyed the conversation, Lori. Thanks for including me.
I really appreciate you coming on. It means the world to me. Stay strong, stay in the battle. Let's win this.
Amen. Thank you.